So in the previous tutorial, we created a message resource handler, which mapped to /messages, and we returned hello world. This is a URL, a REST API URL, which returns hello world all the time. So this is a really lame REST API. We want to enhance this to return a list of messages. That's what we're going to do now. So here's the thing. If this were a real application, you'd probably have a database backend, right? You would have a table for messages, and then you would have some kind of a data layer which connects to the database and pulls up that information, right? The data layer could be something like JDBC, or it could be Hibernate or whatever. But we are learning about JAX-RS and building RESTful APIs here. We don't want to waste time writing all that code to connect to the database and retrieve the data. So what we're going to do is, for this course, I'm going to stub the business service and the data tier. And I'm not going to connect to the database, establish that connection, retrieve the records and all that stuff, right? We want to focus on learning how to build RESTful APIs using JAX-RS. So I'm going to create this mock service and a mock stub, which returns the records, which returns an instance of message. That's all we need, right? We need a service which returns a list of messages, or lets you add messages, delete messages, and all that stuff. So we're going to create that mock service, and we're going to focus on building just RESTful APIs. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a bunch of classes, right? So the first thing I'm going to create is a model class, right? We need a message instance, and what we need to return is a list of such message instances, right? It's going to be a model object. So I'm going to create a new Java class called message, which is a single instance of a message, and I'm going to put this in the model package, and I'll just have a few member variables and getters and setters over here. So if you remember the API that we designed, these were the member variables that we had in mind. I'm just going to import date. So we have an ID, the message itself, the date at which the message was created, and who created it. Now I'm going to generate getters and setters for all of them. Now we have a simple model, right? So this is what contains one instance of the message. I'm going to save this. Now what I'm going to need next is a service which returns the list of messages. There's probably a method there which connects to the database or whatever and returns a list of messages. We're going to create that next. So I will create a new class called message service, and create this in service package. And in this service class, I'm going to need a method that returns a list of message instances, right? Get all messages. This method should return a list of all the messages. So I could hard code a few messages over here. So what I'm going to do is, let me create a constructor over here. And this constructor lets me create new instances of the message class. So it's taking an ID, the message, and the author as parameter, and it's going to create the instance, right? It takes the ID, the message, and the author, and it just picks the current date. So this helps us create new instances, right? So I'm going to say message m1 equals new message of, let's say, 1. It's a long. The message is hello world. Author is Kaushik. And I'm going to create one more, m2, which is id2, and I'm going to call this hello Jersey, and the same author. And I'm going to create a new array list and then return list. I hope this makes sense. I'm just creating two messages, adding it to a list, and I'm just returning that list. Okay, and this is why I need the constructor, so I can create these messages on the fly. But whenever you're creating a constructor like this, always make sure that you have a no-op constructor. I'll tell you why a bit later, but a brief explanation is whenever you're messing around with any XML or JSON conversion, you need a no-op constructor. You need a way for those frameworks to be able to create new instances of your class. If you're wondering why we need XML or JSON conversion, well, we need to return a message as an XML or a JSON in the response, right? So we're going to deal with that when we get there, but always make sure you have this no-op constructor. Okay, so now I have a simple message service which just returns a hard-coded list of messages. Okay, so now what do I have to do over here in the message resource? All I need to do is create a new instance of message service, and then instead of returning hello world, I'm going to return message service dot get all messages, right? The hard-coded list is what I want to return, and I'm going to change this return type to list of messages, which is what this returns. Okay, so I hope this makes sense so far. I just created a model and I created a service which returns a simple hard-coded list of messages. And in my message resource, rather than returning that boring hard-coded text, I'm basically making a call to a service and returning that list of messages. Now, there's one more thing I want to do, right? I don't want to return this as plain text. I want to return this as XML. Say, let's start with XML. So I'm going to do a dot, there should be an application XML. There you go. So this is what I want to return it as, right? So when there's an XML, when there's a GET request being made, I want these message instances, which I've created over here, to be returned as XML. Okay, so I'm going to save this and restart the server. What's going to happen now is really interesting. So let me open up a browser here and access this URL. I get an error. Very nice. Let's look at what the error is. It says message body writer not found for media application XML type array list. If you are not really sure what's going on here, basically the idea is you have a generic type called message, and it's really not sure how to convert that to XML. Okay, and you want this to return XML, and that's where the problem is. Now, how do you make the XML conversion happen? It's actually very simple. You just use an annotation over here. But before I talk about what the annotation is, just think for a minute about what does this conversion. So you're basically asking Jersey to take this list, right? So Jersey executes this method, right? You're basically asking Jersey to take this list, whatever is returned, and convert it to application XML. The thing that actually does this conversion is JAXP. As you know, JAXP kind of comes bundled with Java, right? So you're basically asking Jersey to say, hey, there's already JAXP which is available. Just use JAXP to convert whatever the return type is to XML and send it to this guy, right? But the problem is JAXP kind of needs some clues to do the conversion. The one clue that it needs is an annotation called at XML root element. If you worked with JAXP, you would know what this annotation is, right? It's JavaX XML bind annotation. So you're basically giving some clue to JAXP saying this is kind of like the root element that you are concerned with. And this is all it needs, right? JAXP then looks at these member variables and then it creates XML tags out of it. So I'm going to save this, and I guess the server is getting restarted on its own. Let's try that again. I'm going to hit refresh. And there you go, we got XML. So you have a messages tag, which encompasses the response for this messages. And then you have two messages. You have the first message, which is hello world with ID 1. And you have the second message, which is hello Jersey with ID 2. So we have made progress. So instead of a hard-coded piece of text, now we have a hard-coded list of messages. So if this were to be an actual service, it would actually make a call to the database and get the list of messages. We're going to tweak this service a bit to make it a bit more flexible. I'm going to use a database for this course, but you get the idea. So you have a resource which makes a call to a service, gets the return type, and then converts into application XML. And the thing that helps it convert is this XML root element tag annotation that you need to set to your model to help JAXB do the conversion.